My name is Darren Hupke, and this is Pixels and Polygons, part of the Soundstone Network. Welcome to a new episode of Pixels and Polygons. I am Darren Hupke, the host of the show. If you are a returning listener, thank you so much for coming back and checking out another episode. Hopefully this is another entertaining one for you, and I appreciate you for coming back week after week. If you are new, it's a simple pitch. I sit down with a guest each week and I ask them a video game related prompt or question, and we talk about it. It's 20 to 40 minutes or so each episode. This can stem from topics like what's a underappreciated or below average game you love that doesn't get enough attention, or what is your history with video games? When did you start playing and when did you fall in love with them? Or why do you play the games that you play? There could be a lot of different things. The conversations can go in a lot of different directions, but the point is just to have a great and thoughtful conversation that maybe sparks your own ideas or your own interests as a listener to think about your own responses, and hopefully just have some fun along the way. If you like what you hear and you want to support the show, I've got a few different ways you can do that. I have links in the show notes below to everything that I do, and I'll highlight one of those in particular. Pixels and Polygons Quarterly is, as you guessed it, a quarterly magazine about retro video games. It evolved from my retro gamezine project. Instead of covering a single game in a month, it is now a quarterly release where I cover a few different games in each issue. There's an overarching theme with every issue, and I'll have an original essay that ties all of the games together. But in addition to that, you'll have individual game histories and development details, personal experiences from all the different writing contributors, scans of magazines, manuals, artwork, even of the era, like reviews, a lot of details and artifacts if you are a fan of those games or a fan of the games in that era. The goal is to highlight and cover games that maybe aren't the AAA top 10 of all time type games, but games that deserve some attention and maybe forgotten and maybe a whole new generation should discover and enjoy. So hopefully you enjoy what you read. Quarterly release, you can find them on pixelsandpolygons.net in a physical format, or you can find them over on my Patreon in my digital store. A few different options for you, so check those out. Links in the show notes below. With that out of the way, we can start the episode right after an ad from one of our Soundstone Network partners.
Oh, hi. I didn't see you there. I'm Nick McConnell, and you caught me reading the instruction booklet for Street Fighter II in preparation for my weekly stream Instruction Derby, where I take a look at the creative, fun, and sometimes bizarre lost art of video game manuals. Did you know that, according to the manual for Street Fighter II on the Super Nintendo, Ryu was born in 1964, making him 62 years young, canonically? Happy birthday, Ryu. You're looking great. Did you also know that, per the manual for Laser Invasion on the Nintendo, the UN enters a conclave in order to select a new commando? Or did you know that the dancing enemies in Super Castlevania are named Paula Abgul and Fred Askare? These important facts and many more are discovered every Wednesday at noon Pacific on Instruction Derby, over at internet website twitch.tv/Nick McConnell. Part of the Soundstone Network.
Welcome, everyone, to a new episode of Pixels and Polygons, a conversational podcast about video games. I am Darren Hupke, and I'm with returning guest and great friend and partner of the show, Luis Aguas Vivas. Welcome back. How you doing, Luis?
Yo, it's a pleasure to be here all the time. It's my home away from home. I'm doing all right. The weather's been horrible in New York, except for the past week. And so it's kind of a lot better now. So it's so I'm doing pretty good.
Oh, wow. The weather
if you would have
here,
asked me a week ago, I would have said, no, it's horrible.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I wanted more cool days. I mean, obviously, the country's been dealing with a lot of cold and everything, but while those major like freezing and cold issues were hitting, most of the east and everything, out here it was getting back into the 80s during the week for me, and like it's winter time. I want there to be some cold days. So luckily, this week it's a little bit cold, but starting on Monday and Tuesday again, it's going to be in the low 80s for almost the whole week, which. Wow. I'm just not ready for it to be warm. Like, it won't get hot until like June, July and everything, but still, like, I just, don't want it hovering around like sweat weather, if it doesn't need to be, if we're should still be in the winter months and everything. But yeah. That, and to address any audio sounds, I am was under the weather. I'm feeling better now. I got whatever has been going around here in my parts, but it looks like it's been going around all over the place. But so on the tail end of that, but just, cough and fever and all that jazz, but feeling better, and the show must go on. So we are back again here to talk to you more about video games. So yeah, thanks for jumping on again, Louise. You want to answer an icebreaker question and get the brain flowing?
Yeah. Hit me with the ice pick.
All right. This is which one should I do? Let's just keep it. Let's keep this one light for you. What is the last game that you rolled credits on? So I know a lot of people like I don't think you have to see the end credits to count as like finishing a game or being done with a game or anything. Play a game for as long as it's fun and everything. But what was the last game that was entertaining and exciting enough for you that you just kept playing all the way through to see those end credits? Like, what was the last game you saw that through?
So I recently spent some time with the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. I played that like back when the first one was released in 2013. So I just went to see what's like the new content in Ultra Deluxe. So I did that. I played that for a few hours in total, and I rolled credits on that.
I've never played that. I've always heard great things about it, but I've never actually given that one a shot, even though I've been told I would probably enjoy it.
Yeah, it's cheeky. It's really cheeky. It's like it's within that realm of like the so-called like I'm blanking on the name, like walking simulator. So yeah. It's pretty good in that regard. I think if you talk about like the best of those, that one's there. What's the one about the family? I forget the name of it. The one where it's like the weird family that they're all gonna sound bleak, but where they all die and stuff. Oh, What Remains of Edith Finch. That's it. And Firewatch. I think those are the best ones.
I played Firewatch. I did quite enjoy Firewatch. But yeah, the others did not follow through and play these others. But that just means there's more for my backlog, and more of a chance to discover them again in a pocket of time. That hopefully comes up in the future. So we'll see.
In 2026, it's not the backlog, Darren. It's the opportunity log.
The opportunity log. Got it. Well, before we get into the main question episode, actually, just because you are the Dragon Quest head of the podcast, there's been obviously a few new Dragon Quest titles that have come out. The HD 2D remakes, which I've quite enjoyed, but also the Dragon Quest VII like reimagined. You mentioned before we were recording that you're finishing up a review. This likely won't be posted for weeks later, so if you may, that review of yours may be live, maybe not, but I'd love just to hear your thoughts, if you are willing to share, about Dragon Quest. If not, if this is going to encroach on that review, then we can bypass this entirely. But yeah, what do you think? Can you share some thoughts on that Dragon Quest VII reimagined?
Always. No, I really like it. It's odd, like, because it's like I know that one so well. I actually think that's one of the best like games, like, period. Like, if I had like to do like a pantheon, I think 7 would be up there. Or like 10 or like 11, or like most like what I think are like quote unquote like perfect games. I know that's like kind of crazy saying that because of like all the hate that one gets, especially the original release in 2000/2001 here, like in the States, because of like how how dated like the graphics are, and you know, and you hear all the hoopla about like, oh, it's like the intro takes forever, and it's like, no, that's part of the point. It's in a lot of ways, it's like it's a radical departure from the series, and just and really like hones in on Horiyuri, you know, the mastermind of the series, like his roots as an adventure game designer. But you know, and it's also the game was in development for so long that when it was released, you know, it was almost like, yeah, when it was released, it was something that they needed to like not only like reintroduce the game, but then also like, oh, we have to give like fans like something. And and honestly, the structure of it makes the length, in my opinion, mute. But it's like, it's, you know, you play like a 30-minute session, and it's almost like a self-composed like story, like mini like RPG, and then you move into like something else. So I don't really. I mean, look, I think that anytime that you're spending a lot of time with something, right, and you have like other responsibilities, that's like, you know, that should be taken seriously. But you know, if you're choosing, I don't think that the game itself it's not like you're playing and it's like you sit down and it's like, oh, I actually did spend 20 hours on here because it's so addictive. It's like it's designed in a way where it's like it off ramps you where you need to be off ramped. And I think that with all the, I'm just gonna say like nefarious like design practices now that we're seeing with like gamification, just even like outside of games, and you know, this is like I think that version of that game is very, you know, does a lot of stuff like really well, and it's something that I wish that more places, especially like AAA studios, like emulate it more. Now with Reimagined, I mean, I have a lot of criticisms of it, where it kind of sands off a lot of the odd bits of the series, and even when you play it in, you know, in the harder difficulty setting, like it's not really like alleviated. It still feels like the best like accessible like first like RPG you can possibly like give somebody. It's like, oh, you want to like learn about this, like I think this one is the gold standard now. I really do. And you know, and it's a game like, what other game series, I hint this at my review, but it's like what other game series do you know that's like played by like 70 and 80-year-olds? You know, it's that's like amazing. It's really, and I think we can't like, it's something that's taken for granted.
That's funny. I mean, it's true. I mean, the game is such a gemstone for like players, not just in Japan, but I mean worldwide. But like, obviously, the appeal that it has, like, you know, back home for itself. Like, there are people who are still like very excited every time a new release comes out, but to like reimagine one like that and, you know, make it accessible for new players, but also just give people that excitement to like either play it for the first time as a new generation of folks is kind of cool. I mean, I like the visual look and the aesthetics of it. Like, I do like that change. I mean, of course, I'll take that HD 2D like sprite 3D like combo look. Like, I love that to death. But having those like kind of unique visuals and like the little diorama look and like that's just like a really neat like visual to kind of give to the game too. So I'm looking forward to playing it. I eventually will get to it.
That's good.
I'm excited to give it a shot. I did fall off the original PlayStation 1. I thought it did have some bloat to it, you know, but I was also a much younger, much different gamer when I played it and everything. And I was on the cusp of, actually, I think by that time, I think the PS2 technically did get released here in North America.
Already came out. Yeah. I mean, you can say it's like that timing in some regards. Like, it's really like it came out. It's like the worst possible release time for a game. You know, I do agree though that the game looks great. I think it's the best like visual presentation of any game I've ever played. I'm biased here, but if you would say like, oh, what's like the perfect look? That's it. That checks all my boxes.
Well, high praise. Thank you for taking me down that Dragon Quest corner. The Dragon Quest corner featuring Luis, new segment for the show. We'll pop back in every now and then when there's new Dragon Quest content. But yeah, I'm excited to play that. But let's get into the main topic here. I feel like I've got to ask this question a few times with some of the newer guests and everything. So I'm excited to hear your response to this, because this is always just a fun kind of personal story and get to hear about, your reasons why you enjoy something. But we want to ask you that console story. So what is one of your favorite gaming systems? It doesn't have to be your number one favorite or anything, but just what is one of your favorite gaming systems? When did you get it? Tell us that story about that and some of your favorite memories, and we can talk about the games and other details along the way too. But yeah, what is one of your favorite gaming systems that you've got, Luis?
All right, so I'm gonna pick one that I actually spent the entirety of its lifespan with that initial console, with the one that I bought on release date. So I mean, I think arguably my favorite is the Sega Dreamcast. Rest in peace to Sato Hideki, who passed away recently. He's one of the chief this architects behind that console, and just a lot of the great Sega stuff. But it's gonna be the GameCube. It's gonna be, because I got it in 2001, and then I've had that same purple cube until essentially 2007 when I got a Wii. So there's a lot of memories with that one.
Yeah, the GameCube is a fun one. I think that is one that's come up before. I mean, the Dreamcast is one that's come up for sure. But I think I've had somebody respond with the GameCube as it. Again, this brain fog of my cold, I'm not instantly recalling it. But you got it around launch when it first came out.
Yeah, I got it at launch. I got it even before, because I got it and I wanted Smash Brothers, but that wasn't out yet, so I had to wait
it was a month or something.
I had to wait a month for it. So I had it, and I just had it, and I had no games.
Oh wow! Yeah, I had
the console.
I had some friends who got it, and same thing. Yeah, they got I think they got Luigi's Mansion and all that stuff, but I didn't start playing on GameCube myself until I got one after the big price drop that they did. But yeah, I mean, it was an odd release window to have one of the system's best selling games of its entire console life just missed the launch by just a month. You'd think that if it was that close to being finished, they can kind of ramp up production a little bit or something, but you can't rush perfection.
Weird. Yeah, it was weird because I was also interested in Pikmin, but I had that. That also came out a week or so later, so I also had to wait for that. And Luigi's Mansion, which I really did like, that one I got much later though. It's 2002 by the time that I got my hands on that. And so I was just waiting for Smash Brothers.
Yeah, I mean, that system has a lot of great games on it. Obviously, the big Nintendo hitters. I mean, that's the origins of, or at least for us in North America, the origins of Animal Crossing, Pikmin, and some big ones there. What was that first, I mean, unless it was Luigi's Mansion or Pikmin or Smash Bros., but what was that first big game you got afterwards? After, in that first year or so, what was the next one that came out that you were stuck on?
It was Pikmin, because I got Smash Brothers, and then I remember 2 days later, I got my father, or as an early Christmas gift, he got me Pikmin, because because I like plants and all that stuff, and he thought that he thought that that's what that was, a horticultural game or whatever. But how wrong was he?
Yeah.
But
it turns out you're Captain Olimar on a foreign planet trying to rescue these creatures now to rebuild his ship and escape. But I
replayed that last year again, and it's and I don't, there's just something about that generation. I don't know if I'm just blinded by nostalgia. I have to really think about it, but I think that's I don't think games have gotten better in regards to gameplay, right? And feel. I I think that there's stuff that comes out that's like really great and like matches all that. But I think that's like almost like it's like the plateau. I think that after that generation, and this is not just, I'm talking about like PlayStation 2, Dreamcast, and Xbox, right? It's I think after that generation, I think a lot of game design went in like different ways, like starting to embrace, because more like open world designs and things that were almost like a potpourri of different styles or genres of games within a game, right? As opposed to this like very specific. Like imagine like a game like Katamari, for example, and it's not a GameCube game, but you know, with that era, like, or even like Pikmin themselves are like made now by like by these studios, right? Like Banco now, you know, Namco Bandai now, or like Nintendo making something like that. They really wouldn't, because now they're you know, now like games have to be like all this like extra stuff, which is like, it's all right, but you kind of lose that like honed in like aspect of it, where like a Pikmin you can beat that in like a few hours, and then you can play it again and it's like, okay, can I do better, right?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. It's interesting how games. Yeah, it's interesting how games did that. Like you'd think that we'd be more willing to have shorter, or like we'd be more accepting of games of varying lengths and varying styles or sizes. Like nowadays, with being able to be more accustomed to like downloadable games, like indie games, all these things. But like that's the thing that we have kind of gotten away from, and like the major like mainstream side of things. Like you wouldn't get like you just said, like you wouldn't get a game like Pikmin today. You wouldn't get a game like a Beautiful Joe, or, you know, something that you can finish in 10 to 12 hours like you would then. And now is like the perfect time to do things like that. But I mean, part of that probably too is, you know, team sizes growing because of, you know, graphics and fidelity being a big push, like the Final Fantasy 13 of it all, you know, like it has to visually look amazing, and the gameplay is almost like the secondary thought to it all. So like it's just an interesting dynamic of it. But yeah, I think that era, that generation for sure was the one where people were still just getting weird and just making fun games and just finding gameplay loops that like, you know, were entertaining at first, and then allowed players to kind of take it where they wanted to go with it, you know, whether that's replaying and mastering it to obsess over it, or finding the next game, or whatever it may be. There were games where they're still willing to take new chances and just be weird and be different and be okay with it. But it was a good time. I mean, obviously, there's still lots of great games to still go back and find. If you're a younger gamer still looking to understand why we are so nostalgic for these things, or if you just haven't played them in a while, it's still worth going back and taking a look at them. The controllers, GameCube had a very unique controller. Obviously, it had the second analog in the form of like that little C stick, and then it had the analog shoulder buttons, little Z button. It was, you know, and then the face buttons themselves, like from just an accessibility and like UI standpoint, like it made it easy to have like, you know, feel like tactically where your main buttons were and everything. But it also made it challenging for multi-platform games to kind of like adapt to that system. But what are your thoughts on the controller itself? Did you have a like a fun memory of it, or and I know it came out in multiple colors. Did you have like a go-to favorite color for the controller as well?
I mean, I was pretty much like the classic like purple, but I know it's really indigo, style. I mean, and that's the one that I went with. And whenever I bought like extra controllers, that was always the color I would get. You know, I grew up in a very conservative, dictatorial household, so you had to have uniformity, so same color for everything. I really like that controller in the sense of like its feel. Like it feels great. Even today, it still feels like really good. But I think the button layout, once you start getting like the A feels good, you know, like the two main, triggers or like bumpers like L and R feel great. But then after that, stuff gets like weird. Like it's like, okay, you gotta go. B's like really small. Have like the X and Y. It's like they're fine. But then you have like the C stick, which is like abomination, and you know the D-pad, which is like cool from afar. But then like when you actually have to like use it for certain things, especially after like you start using like stuff like, you know, like the Xbox controller, like the PlayStation, like DualShock. You're like, what the hell?
Yeah, that D-pad I think is the same size as the Game Boy Advance. I believe it's even potentially the same plastic used from that original Game Boy Advance model.
I believe it. And you know, and it's sucks, but you know, if you're like a dirty capitalist, you're like, man, that's like Nintendo. You gotta love them. But I think it does what it's supposed to do, and I think a lot of games were designed with that controller in mind. Specifically talking about Nintendo games, so it's not, you don't really feel it right when you're playing Nintendo games, but when you're not playing Nintendo games, you're like, oh my god. Especially if there's you know, if that game is also like on another console. Even the Dreamcast controller, which I don't think the feel of it was necessarily great, and it did have like a similar D-pad shenanigans going on.
Mm-hmm.
Certain games feel a lot better on that than their GameCube like counterparts. But you know, this is the beginning of the end of that whole like, we can make whatever. You know, Nintendo was still like holding on to making their own type of controllers. They're like, nah, no, like we don't need to standardize. As you're starting to see like the Xbox and the PlayStation controllers like really start like getting closer together to a certain degree, with just like a few like variations of, you know, where you have like analog sticks and everything. But by next generation, you know, Sony and Xbox were essentially like in the same page when it comes to like layout. Nintendo obviously would hold out because it's it's the Wii. They went even further. It's like, nah, we're gonna be extra reactionary. You want 14 button controllers? Here, we're gonna give you technically like 6 or something.
Yeah, we're gonna give you so few. Yeah.
And then eventually they're just like, oh crap, we're done. It's like, here's a Wii U Pro controller. We give up.
One thing I loved about the GameCube was especially like looking back now and like going to like, you know, retro game like conventions and you know, finding like cool game stores out in the wild, like the import like GameCube game cases, like the small compact size that they were, and you know, even a lot of them having like a little slip cover for them. Like I just loved how like small and condensed they were. Like to me, they're just like the Super Famicom like cartridges and like boxes. Like they've always had like a really like cool, tight and compact like game and box design, and I loved that about the Japanese GameCube cases. We here in North America, we'd end up getting like DVD sized cases, but like it wasn't from the same manufacturer who made the same ones for the Xbox and the PlayStation. Like they obviously had to, you know, be Nintendo and do their own thing, and they had like that weird like bulk like squared off like plastic on like the inner edge to kind of like interlock and close, and you know, this big giant case size just for like the small GameCube disc internally and everything. So I always thought it was weird that they went that route in North America, but I loved those import cases and everything. Like I don't know if you've seen those or if you have any games yourself.
I love those. Are my favorite, but those are like my favorite like presentation for packaging in regards to like the literally the package, right? Like the size of it, and you have like some really like great artwork. So compact, obviously it makes sense like within like a Japanese home. You know, you can fit so many of those. Yeah, here in like outside of Japan, it's like this really like bulky, which kudos, it's like those are like actually like bulky ass cases. Like I sell them, you know, I don't think I've ever seen like a crushed like GameCube game case. You know, I used to see that all the time for PlayStation 2s or, you know, or Xbox, especially like, you know, PlayStation 1 and Saturn with the jewel cases. Like those would get crushed like all the time if you weren't careful. So I don't know if maybe that was where Nintendo was kind of going for it. I know there's definitely like pressure from like, you know, what would sell necessarily like in Japan, like back then, like have like that cutesy look. I think there was probably like a lot of fear of it that actually like translating into like sales. It's kind of similar to like tabletop like games like being sold, how like you'll have like a card game and it'll have like a box that can fit like 30 of the deck of cards.
Oh yeah.
But it's just because you need to have like that presence on the shelf. And I guess at that point, right, with PlayStation 2 kind of leading the way in North America first, right? It became like, oh, you kind of need something that can like match that. If you with the GameCube, with the Japanese GameCube cases here, especially how, you know, we're thinking also to like the layout of stores in North America, right? It's like it's all very uniformed when it comes to that. So the games will be displayed, you know, like front cover first. You know, it's not going to work. But, you know, thinking about that, you know, they also were releasing like Game Boy Advance games, and those were like smallish boxes, quote unquote,
cardboard cases.
know.
But I bet that still made the most sense for it, because if they were already buying shelves for the PS2 games, like then you knew that they could fit if they made them in that bigger size. Because if not, they'd either have to, you either have to annoy or bother them to fabricate and manufacture something smaller to display a potential smaller case. And at that point, are they going to likely order as many or stock as many if they have to go out of their way to use these other shelving and things like that? Keeping it more universal will probably help them, like, hey, we're going to at least guarantee we have some visual and some shelf space because we're making it easier on like the retailer side of things, which makes sense. But it is just it
makes sense, but it sucks because like, yeah, when you look at like which one you would rather have, right? I think you and I would definitely say like the Japanese one. And also like the cover art, it's so different. Like you look at like cover art for stuff like, you name the game, the cover, in my opinion, the cover art for the Japanese versions are superior. I don't know, like, I can't think of a game talking specifically the GameCube. There's some exceptions and like other consoles. I'm not saying that like the Japanese are flat out like better than all the other like releases of like the games across the world, but for the GameCube, there's just something about that it's like what's like the worst, most like generic. It's usually always like, oh, just have like the like a model of the character in game, like in the front cover, as opposed to having some like interpretation. Like that's some like the Pikmin ones, like those are like amazing. You have like this like pastiche of like flowers and like green different colors, and you have like the Pikmin like in front of you. Like you look at that, you're like, what the hell looks like at least for me, I was just like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier, but like the Beautiful Joe artwork is just like really cool. It's the character art and all that stuff, which obviously kind of matches the in-game look of the game with being like cell shaded and everything. But even like the designery look, like Resident Evil 4, like the Biohazard, 4 of it, also it does kind of fall trope with like the character art of it and everything, but like it's still like something about just like that compact size, and even like I don't know. I like the look of those. I would say like, and like you, I think it's probably my favorite like case and form factor size. I wish I could have like, shelves full of just all my games like in this nice little compact form, but it's still big enough to have like really kind of striking and like impactful like artwork on the cover. And it's just neat. It's just a well designed.
It's really neat. And it's like, and you see eventually where, once these games start getting re-released for other platforms, they start using more of that, like the Japanese, like GameCube, like cover or similar stuff in the future. At that point too, anime wasn't like Japanese cultures, like we now see it like, ubiquitous, like in the US, right? It wasn't really there yet. So I think there was still within that, that era where they're trying to like placate to what they perceive to be like, Western taste or specific like market taste. To the point of like, which I kind of find hilarious, because it's like, so you pick like the objectively like uglier, so that's what you think people like.
That's funny. All right, well then, let's do this. Let's round out the convo with maybe your Mount Rushmore of 4 games you think that would represent the identity of the GameCube for you. These don't have to be the 4 best GameCube games, but what are just 4 titles you think just kind of capture the essence and the entertainment and the fun that you had out of the GameCube experience? What would you put up there?
Yeah.
I mean, Pikmin, I think is
4.
Yeah, I think Pikmin's got to get a spot.
I don't know if I would though, just because. I mean, I think it's really good, but I don't think it's like, well, if I'm thinking about like, well, it's just, the thing is like, it's 4. So it's like, if it was more, I would probably add that.
Oh my gosh.
Even though that's probably my favorite on there. I would say, I think Luigi's Mansion, I think sets the tone. Definitely sets the tone for the console, because it's like, it's weird. in the sense of like everything about it, it's weird. You're just like, it's all like left field, like oddball choices. It's like, you know, it's like you're presented with, you're like on the road and you reach like a fork and you have like the obvious green pasture one that like leads you to where you have to go. You have like the center one, which is like, yeah, get me there, but it's like, you know, it's going to take more time. Or you have like the one that's like, why would I go this route? I don't even know. I haven't gone there before. Like, I have no idea what's going to be there. And that's what that game really is like. It's like, okay, Luigi is a Ghostbuster, you know, essentially. Yeah. It's like, we're going to launch without Mario.
Yeah, bold decision. Yeah.
It's not a platformer. Like, the guy just never, like, at least like voluntarily, right? He does not raise his feet from the ground. Only one step at a time when he's going up like steps or what. So it's just such a like bizarre. It's a great game. I think it's like, that is like, you're talking about a really nice like sit down like evening. Let me try to power this through like in an evening or two. That's a great experience. But it's just odd. It's really odd. But I think it's also, I have a conspiracy that game's also Resident Evil marketing, where it's just like them setting up like, oh, this is what, oh, you think this is great. Well, to 2002 when we get that Resident Evil remake, which is still one of the best looking games ever made. Like, so that's yeah. The other one I would say would be Phantasy Star Online episodes 1 and 2. Just because of what that meant, which is like, you know, we had like Sonic Adventure was on there, but that one was like, this one was a very like, this is what the Dreamcast was about. The Dreamcast promise was in that game, and it being on the GameCube, I think it's bittersweet in the sense we're like, okay, Sega's not making hardware anymore, but we're getting this like on the GameCube, and in a system that essentially had almost no online functionality except for that game and a few other exceptions. So it's also,
I feel like part of me feels like that Sega did that, like they took the most out on Sony. They were like, you know what, you're the ones who really drove the nail in our coffin. Like, yes, we battled it with Nintendo for so long, but we respect them. You just kind of came in here and like, you know, took our ball and like, you know, made us go home. Like, we're not happy with you, so you get here, you can get Crazy Taxi, and you know, we'll give you something else. We'll give you, you know, Space Channel 5 down the road or something like that. But to our friends at Nintendo, we're giving them Sonic, we're giving them Phantasy Star Online. You know, they gave them like much more. And then like the Xbox, like the new kid on the block, they're like, all right, well, you can have the weird stuff too. We'll give you Jet Set Radio. We'll give you, you know, Sega GT. Man, like, yeah, I
love Jet Set. Yeah,
but they like Crazy Taxi essentially was the crown jewel that Sony got from Sega, which again, I love the Crazy Taxi to death and everything, but compared to some of those other ones, Skies of Arcadia even showed up on the GameCube. I mean, like Sega definitely gave like
great the odd love. Of that game too.
Oh yeah, made it definitely more playable with battle frequencies and everything. But yeah, okay. I thought initially it was an odd choice for you to maybe consider Phantasy Star for the GameCube, but I think you're right as far as like the identity of it, like definitely helped.
I'm looking at the totality. Like, it's not necessarily like the best games. I think one of the ones I think we can clearly say is probably one of the best ever made, not just in the GameCube this period, but you know, I'm that one fits into that. And it's also like what it means for like the utilization of the hardware, like in context of like, you know, the competitors like the Dreamcast, you know, like bowing out and what that means on there. And, you know, it came out on the Xbox as well later on, but it felt differently. I think that was when I saw that game was coming out, I was really shocked, and I almost felt like by purchasing it, I was like contributing to like, you know, to putting like a nail like in the coffin of, you know, of Sega, and I love like the Dreamcast. My third one's gonna be Mario Kart Double Dash, because
that's a good one. That also uses that broadband adapter to link systems.
Not for online, but but you can do a LAN play, which is that's like a really cool experience. I was at MagFest and they had the setups they had for that were like really, really great. But that one is like, you know, that's a console with the 4 controller slots. That's it's not the best Mario Kart, but it's definitely one of the best like local 4-player games at the time. It still holds up pretty well because you have a mechanic that is not. I mean, it hasn't appeared since, right? Which is like the double drivers that you can like switch from and everything, and gives you like a little bit more like decision making. It's a little more to do with Mario Kart. Yeah, and last one, I think this is it's fitting because it's number 4. It's RE4, Resident Evil 4, which it's like a masterclass in action like adventure gaming, and the fact that it came out like on the GameCube first really like revealed like the promise of the system, which I think was never like fully, didn't really fully materialize, but it really showed that, it really showed what the console can do. And unfortunately, it's like the last time that Nintendo was actually trying to like compete. Well, I don't say unfortunately. I think it worked out for them. I think they made the right decision buying out of like the hardware specs, when it comes to consoles. But that was like the last console that was like, oh, this is like quote unquote cutting edge, right, for console gaming.
Yeah, I think from there on, it definitely was like, we don't have to try and play like mainstream competition and then do our unique Nintendo thing. After the GameCube, they just were like, you know what, like we're gonna just do our Nintendo thing, and the people who want to come with us can come with us, and we'll see what that does for us. And obviously,
and look at and look at 3 of the consoles that came afterwards: Wii, DS, and Switch. It's just like gangbuster success. Like it's just, they've had some obviously. But if we're gonna, we can call them failure. We can call them failure, right? Like Wii U and everything. But which I think that console's way better than it actually like than the sales.
Yeah, it's more of a branding issue than it really was a failed system. Like, if you can run that one back and they give it a whole new name and a different marketing push, like it most likely is a far better console for them and everything. But yeah, even Nintendo's failures aren't really failures,
Yeah, it had Mario Kart 8 and like Pikmin 3. Those are 3 of, that's just like, that's the pinnacle of those style of games. So it's, but we're talking about the GameCube.
But your final 4th slot, you're given to Resident Evil 4. So
it just needs to be that or Piano 3.
Oh, I was going to say, I was going to bring it up. I was going to say, you're giving that, of the Capcom 5, you're giving that 4th slot to Resident Evil 4. You didn't want to maybe consider Piano 3 or Beautiful Joe or the unreleased games that they just didn't get around to.
Yeah, I'm in the process of I'm going to replay Piano 3 because I'm set to review the Pragmatica.
Oh,
and those games have like a similar like DNA.
Yeah. So, I don't know if that's just.
If you haven't played that demo, you should play that game.
I have not yet. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. But obviously the sci-fi action edge to it. It's just kind of interesting. Having that then and seeing Pragmata now and everything. It's kind of funny how it kind of all ties back. It's funny. It's like when Elden Ring was first announced, I remembered back to the FromSoft Eternal Ring on the PS2, one of the launch games for it and everything. And I was like, oh, I wonder if this is a throwback here, and if anybody is going to make any connection to this, completely forgotten, dud from Software. But Piano 3 definitely is that coded for those diehards, those Capcom diehards, to like look for some little secrets and Easter eggs and all stuff probably within the game.
Yeah, it's such a neat. It's going back to what we were saying at the beginning of our conversation, right? It is like, this generation is like, you see like AAA developers still making these like arcade adjacent games that are short experiences that you can try to master, right? That you can try to master, and the replayability is within like getting better at the game and just like catching Easter eggs or seeing like all this other stuff, which I really appreciate. I think it was a mistake when we were just leaning so hard on so-called like hours of actual like runtime of a game. Like we really like went hard on that, starting actually with this generation, and then once like PS3 Xbox 360 came out, that was like it's like, oh, a game would just get panned if it didn't, if from start to credit wasn't like fucking 40 hours or something.
Yeah.
It's just like, you gotta be like kidding me. Which I know, like, the Outrun games were like getting like trash, and nothing. You play those now, you're like, it's like the greatest stuff. It's so
like funny.
The greatest thing you could ever freaking play. Like,
I mean, I guess the people who care about it and knew how special they were able to keep like the torch alive a little bit. And then now looking back nostalgically, where we aren't beholden to those like current gen expectations and standards of like those eras and those moments, you can just kind of judge a game for the quality that it is. And yeah, games that were good all along turns out were good all along, and just because they weren't these
and
crazy,
the fact that we haven't gotten another Outrun, that to me, it's like, I hold a vendetta against all those reviewers, and it's not because if you don't like the game, you don't like the game. It's just like the logic of the criticism. I think it's like, it's just like moronic. It's just completely moronic. It's like, oh, it's like, it's not 60 hours. And it's like, yeah, but you can play this for 60 hours, and it actually has like gameplay that like you want to play this for 60 hours. I mean, after I'm done with a lot of these like long RPGs of the time, I never want to see them again, like ever. And to this day, most of them I never want to play. You talk to me about whatever, and I'm just like, nah, that game sucked. I can't believe I played that.
That's fun. All right. Well, yeah, we did it. This episode ended up being a lot longer than I thought it would be. So, listeners, I hope you got some bang for your buck there. Oh, wait, the show is still free. Never mind. You get what you get. You don't throw a fit. But thank you, Luis, for coming back on and talking the GameCube. I know a lot of people think I'm a Nintendo hater and everything, but I do have a lot of respect and love and appreciation for Nintendo. I'm just much more critical when I see them doing things maybe I don't agree with. But at the end of the day, that's what always makes Nintendo the best, is they don't do things they think people want. They do things they want to do. And as it turns out, it is more often than not an entertaining game, and that we're all excited and surprised by. So the GameCube, big fun hit of a console, I think, for sure too. So thank you for sharing that. Anything you want to plug or share before we wrap up then?
So much. I'll just say, if you're a listener in Europe, specifically in Germany, a Maze Fest, it's coming up in May. So look for that. That's always like great. Yeah, and you can just follow me on Blue Sky and just like see what I'm up to. I even lose track of what's going on with me. So
that's fun.
Oh, and if it's somebody has more detailed history of the decision Nintendo had on like distributing the cases as they did for GameCube as opposed to like the Japanese versions, find me online and let me know.
Yeah,
I'm really interested to know more about that.
Let's get to the bottom of it. Maybe they couldn't produce as many as they wanted to, and so they saved it for Japan.
The Japanese market. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of there's so many things that I do really want to hear about. It's just
love those cases.
Such a beautiful thing. Like, why would you like go to the ugly side?
Well, all right, Luis, thank you for joining me again as usual. We'll definitely have you on the show again in the future. But yeah, appreciate your time, and everyone, thank you for listening. But thank you all for listening. Have a great week, and come back next week for another new episode. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Listen to Flashback 64, the chronological Nintendo 64 podcast. Hosts Gooey, McKenna, and friends flashback to the 90s and early 2000s with a look at the Nintendo 64's catalog and its contemporary cultural and historical context. Starting with the console's launch titles and proceeding in release order, we discuss classics like GoldenEye, Super Mario 64, and Star Fox 64, as well as some not-so-beloved games, lesser-known titles, and everything in between. Along with game-specific deep dives, we also cover other bits of pop culture from the time, like films, music, and more. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.